No one wants to settle for mediocrity, and yet so many do. Despite watching all the videos, reading all the newsletters, and listening to all the podcasts, even if you're in the smallest percent of people who turn that theory into practice and actually do something with it, you still end up just getting the same results as everyone else who's doing the same things and following the same advice. When everyone is listening to the same advice, they become average. So, what are you supposed to do if you want to be in the top 1%? You have to learn the real rules that no one tells you, but everyone wishes they knew. Right now, everyone is saying be obsessed, work harder, network more, post consistently. But here's what they're not saying: the people who actually break through with this method aren't doing the same thing as everyone else. They're not following all the rules, they're breaking them, but not in the ways that you expect. I've watched this pattern repeat itself over and over again. The ones who actually break the mold aren't the most talented or the most connected. They're the ones who figure out something that the rest of us didn't want to admit. Most of what we're told to do is designed to keep us safely average. Average is good for business. It keeps people stuck and buying solutions. Today, I want to share some rules for life that will make you unconventional. This isn't theory, these are actual patterns that I've seen that separate people who get what they want from everyone else who stays stuck in place. Rule number one: be the exception. In everything, there is an exception. And being the exception does not mean believing the rules do not apply to you. It means having the skill of telling when those rules are real or made up. Then bypassing the made up ones while only honoring the real ones, i.e., laws. Laws are the only real rules you need to follow. Everything else is culture, and culture is meant to change, to evolve. The simplest way to become the exception is to believe with your entire being that if someone else has achieved this thing, I can too. That's it. For many, though, that is easier said than done. In my experience, most outliers, people who embrace what makes them unique, they don't see it as an option. It's the way that they are. In my experience, embracing the things that make me unique, I also didn't have a choice. In school, I was bullied for them. Even teachers thought I was weird and needed to conform. And then when I didn't conform because that's just not the way that I was punished for it. But nobody understood that was just my nature. And it was me who understood this the least until far, far later in my life. And that's why it didn't become an option. It became just the way that I am and the way that I accept and the way that I accepted that I was the exception was actually just self acceptance. So here's how you can be the exception to the rules as well. First step is to know that exceptions exist. There are always outliers. Just because 99% of people get rejected doesn't mean that the other 1% don't. That's quite literally what it means to get ahead of 99% of people. It starts with believing that it's possible. In fact, that it's the norm. There will always be exceptions. But most people exclude themselves from that possibility because they believe in statistics too much. They think if it doesn't work out for most people, it won't work out for me. So why bother trying? That's like not starting a business because most businesses end in failure, instead of looking at what are all the commonalities of businesses that actually go on to succeed, and how can I bake those commonalities into my business. In my experience, the people who make it are those who always believed that they would. They were always unconventional, usually in ways that attracted adversity, even bullying. They were mocked for being triangle pegs trying to fit into square holes, or round holes, or any kind of hole. Eventually, they stopped trying and realized they could succeed in the blank spaces that no one else was seeing, achieving goals that others didn't even realize were options, because they knew that there are no real limits, only what you can create. The second way to become the exception is to want to be the exception. That's simple enough, except as soon as you begin to be the exception, you realize there aren't many people who can give you advice from that point forward. Those who have walked that path before you often aren't giving advice or won't even know that you exist. And you likely won't even know that they exist. And many of the people who are broadcasting advice are just echoing more of what others are saying because they think that's what gets them likes and follows. It's not necessarily what will actually help people the most. So it can be a tough, lonely, and isolating experience to actually be the exception. That is to do what you want to do and create what you want to create. The support systems for that don't exist inherently. You have to create them for yourself or not need them at all and instead learn to rely on yourself. And the third most important factor about becoming the exception is that you need to remember, don't stop doing the basics. Many people think, got it, do what others aren't doing. That makes me the exception. That is very important, but you should never stop doing the basics. Everyone who is doing the same stuff is doing the same stuff because it's working. You see a lot of the same business models and a lot of the same products and a lot of the same offers because that stuff works. And the things that don't work tend to fade out quickly. So instead, you should do what they aren't doing on top of the basics and make variations that are unique and different to what they are doing that are authentic to you. So I made this mistake a lot earlier in my career because I was different than most and my ideas were different than most people's ideas. And I wrote a lot of stuff that most people could not or did not want to understand. They were looking for things that reflected back what they already thought and felt. And those things did not do that. And that's fine. It actually led to the things that I love to write about now. The mistake was not also speaking on the topics that everybody else was, because those were the conversations of the time, the conversation the culture was having. And I only realized later that while I was saying what was interesting and earth shattering for me and for those who it resonated with the most, I was fundamentally saying it in a room that almost nobody else was in. So my chances of taking off and having success were so low because I was just somewhere else. So don't skip the basics. Just do more on top of them and find your own spin on them. Okay, the second rule is you have to learn to trust yourself and have faith in the process. Most people do not trust themselves. It's the reason they don't let themselves become exceptions in many cases. So trusting yourself immediately separates you from everyone who doesn't. It also grants you a new superpower: walking roads less traveled, or not traveled at all. When people don't trust themselves, they simply model what they see others doing. They go to the same schools, date the same type of people that their peers date, get the same jobs, and buy the same types of houses on the same streets in many cases. When you trust yourself and your gut tells you to go one way, even if no one else is going that way, you still go. And that puts you in situations that no one else is in. And over time, it makes you someone who is recognized as being like no one else. The proof is in who you are. And when you're learning to trust yourself, it's actually far more about game theory than it is about self-esteem. Because really, everyone is born trusting themselves. They just have to touch one too many hot stoves, and they stop taking those chances. When most people make decisions and they pan out badly, they don't just stop making the decision, they stop trusting themselves to make big decisions. They start doubting their entire decision-making process because they don't realize how many decisions end in failure. No one publicizes their failures. They don't post pictures on Instagram of their bad hair days. So it feels like when you're failing, it has something to do with you instead of the part of the process, that it's something that's only happening to you and not everyone else all of the time. It's not just part of the process, it's most of the process in my experience. When you accept failure as a statistical occurrence more than something reflecting who you are, you can create a type of self-trust that actually endures. Rule number 3 is to go where they are. There are people out there who are doing what you want to do, most likely. And there are people out there that you want to learn from. There are those who are already ahead of 99% of people in your view. But those people are definitely not going to show up on your doorstep. If you're lucky, they may hire you to help them, and that brings you closer into their world where you can learn their lessons. But most often, the people they choose to keep close to them are the ones who are already close to them in proximity and geography, in the room already. To offset this, early in my career, I made one of these things my standards. I flew to my clients anywhere in the world: Australia, Malaysia, back to the US, back to Australia, 20-hour flights, dozens of times a year. I began to dread flying, but it didn't matter because I knew how valuable it was to be in person. And when you're competing for clients or mentors, you want to be the realest person in the room. And that means being in the room. So don't underestimate this one because it can feel excessive or expensive, but until you have the type of authority where people are coming to you asking for your help, this is a chance that you have to be willing to take again and again. Okay, so tying into the last one a little bit is rule number 4: send videos and voice messages. So, second best to being in the room is sending others videos. And the third best is a voice message. It doesn't matter what you have to say if you don't have someone's attention. And the best way to get their attention is to be right in front of them. And the next best way is to have a video that is made specifically for them that they can watch on their own time in the comfort of their own home when convenient. And then the next most convenient method is actually just sending a voice message, assuming that they don't ignore it. I'm the type of person, if I receive a voice message, I actually put it off for a long time just because I know they disappear typically. That puts pressure on me. But this is extremely important, especially when communicating with people who value their time. Those people don't sit around and respond to texts all day, and they definitely don't sit around and respond to emails. And they're absolutely not going to respond the moment they receive one unless they happen to be holding their phone at that exact second and they find that easier. It can be hard to imagine getting thousands of messages a day, but once you see the reality of that, you realize why this type of communication just is not going to work with these types of people. So, creating a video shows someone that you cared enough and had enough to say that you made a piece of content custom for them. And it also gives them the benefit of hearing from you on their own time, not to mention the excitement and curiosity of receiving that video, which makes them actually want to watch and listen to you. This also gives them a chance to rewatch what you have to say. So even if you're intense or overwhelming, as I can often be, it actually gives them the opportunity to process what you have to say in their own time without the burden of wondering, how they're being perceived or how they look that day or anything like that. So this actually leads to them taking the time to hear you, to understand you, and remember what you've said, instantly setting you apart from thousands of others. Rule number 5, don't underestimate the power of compounding focus. So, this is the most important rule on the list if you could only take one rule away from this video. Most people know that ADD is more popular than ever, and that if you simply focus, you're already thinking and creating at a level far above most other people. But what most people don't realize is that the nature of focus changes from one day to the next when it's directed at one task or one type of task consecutively. So, a person doing sales on day one is going to be eaten alive by a person who's been doing sales for 30 days straight. The same is true of writing, producing music, teaching, you name it, any skill. The difference is that focus has a compounding effect. It builds momentum that is like waking up each day with the wind at your back. This momentum also consumes the fear that leads to procrastination and slow starts, and instead replaces it with a curiosity that begins to occupy the time when you're not creating. So you find yourself having your next insight in the shower. You know where to pick up on your writing the next time you sit down because it came to you while you were on a drive. So compounding focus is not a situation where one day of focus plus one more day of focus equals 2 days of focus. It's more like 1 plus 1 equals 3, plus 1 equals 6, plus 1 equals 9, plus 1 equals 14, plus 1 equals 20, plus 1 equals 30. When you begin to leverage this phenomenon, you begin to operate on an entirely different level than most people. It's like a new shipping company starting up today trying to catch up to Amazon. They just have so much going for them right now from so many years of compounding focus and mastery that it's practically impossible to start at their level. You want to create this kind of momentum in whatever you do and eliminate anything that stops it from happening. If you've never experienced it before, just give yourself the space and the days to have the chance to discover what you're really capable of and how much easier it is to actually create this way. Rule number 6 is to go after the right goals. So, most of the time, when someone is having a hard time achieving their goals, it's either because they are using the wrong strategy or haven't been consistent or flexible enough to learn and adapt yet. Usually thinking they know more than they do or assuming something they know is true when it's really just something they picked up from someone else. These kinds of problems can be solved with time, flexibility, and learning, and being willing to essentially reapproach the drawing board until eventually you can crack it. The rest of the time, though, the issue is something far more nuanced and deeper. They're chasing goals they don't really want. And this is actually far more common and much more insidious. People more and more believe that this is normal and don't even catch themselves doing this, pursuing goals they don't actually want because so many others are doing it all the time, working jobs they hate, dating people they don't love. And at the deepest level, they think, well, everyone else is. So they accept it. They believe it's normal. What they don't realize is the depth of the sabotage that occurs when you do this, not just psychologically, as you try to save yourself from a fate that you don't desire through failure, but also neurologically too. When you're working towards something you don't really want, your brain gets confused. It has no idea what to reward you for because it knows what you truly desire. And you can change, you can trick yourself, but there's always that essence of what you truly desire and who you truly are underneath the surface. And nobody knows that better than you and your brain. So you end up watching motivational videos and psyching yourself up and using every ounce of willpower to push through because, again, that's what you see others saying to do. But you don't have to do that when you do what you want. When you do what you want, your brain actually rewards you every step of the way. It feels good. The same physical actions can feel entirely different. Instead of ending the day drained with your adrenal glands destroyed, you have enough energy to create again, twice a day, 3 times a day. And the process actually fuels you. It gives you energy instead of taking it. Knowing what you want doesn't take years of therapy to figure out. You just have to clear the noise of what everyone else in your life is saying and the content that you're consuming is telling you, and simply just wait until you feel something good and then pursue that. That will take you somewhere that you don't anticipate yet. And you don't have to understand why it makes you feel good to find out and discover what that place is yet. Rule number 7, aim for resonance, not volume. So this one matters more in the age of AI than it ever did. Anyone can open up ChatGPT and tell it to create an endless supply of content. Fewer people can turn themselves into a workhorse and create a massive amount of content themselves. But even then, strategically, it's not the best thing to do. And these days, it's not going to separate you from 99% of people. The only thing that will is to aim for resonance. Creating endless content is like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. This will work eventually, but you'll find that what sticks when you throw spaghetti into the void will be content that resonates with the basest emotions and desires. That's why you see so many creators you love devolve over time into content about doing what they do or making money online. It's what the largest volume of people want. So they end up taking the path of least resistance. Nothing is inherently wrong with that, and you can make a lot of money doing it. But it is wrong to expect anything different to happen when you do this. Instead, aim to resonate with the person you want to help most. You do this by focusing on quality, by adding as much value as possible into the things you create. By creating something in that way, when it is put in front of the right person, it's like holding up a sign with their name and their social security number on it. It's impossible to ignore. Instead of the spray and pray method, this is more like engineering the stickiest substance on earth and taking your time to do that so then you can throw it on the wall and watch it stick for decades. So, how do you do that? Many people get close to this by creating things that they want and then learning to market to people who are like them. And this can work for sure. But I'm pretty autistic, so a lot of people aren't like me. So I had to do this the other way around by spending all of my time understanding others, learning human psychology, learning what makes people different, and seeking to respect those differences. When you focus on who you're creating for, you can make something better, something that sticks, that resonates and polarizes, and whatever you want to make. This doesn't mean don't go for volume. Again, rule number 1 is to be the exception, but don't throw out the basics. Don't throw out the best practices. You want to be everywhere and all the time, but you don't want to be the same as everyone else too. You want to be having the same conversations, but in your own unique way, putting your spin on top of it so people can be attracted to what you make and then be pleasantly surprised with what they find when they actually take the click. If you can do resonance at volume, you'll automatically be not just in the top 1%, but the top 0.1%. Okay, lastly, just to wrap this up, do not trust your desire to be ahead. So this may seem like an odd video for me to make in general, since I mostly make videos about creativity. And for the last year, I've been researching creativity, and that's been my largest focus. But to me, how you live life is the thing that you want to be most creative with. If you do, you'll naturally be ahead of 99% of people. Consider the goal though. What actually is ahead? There's a philosophical element there for sure. Many would say being ahead is having more money, but really that's actually just an easy way to measure who has more than another person. It's not actually a sign that somebody is better or not. Maybe it's having a happier family or better relationships. But in my journey, I've met many rich people with families that were happy and healthy and relationships that others would kill for who were still miserable people. In fact, I would say that this is the norm, not the exception. Why? Well, I think it's because they focused on achieving goals that deep down were what other people wanted, assuming that those must be the right things to want. In the process, they forgot how to listen to their own signal. And then, when they got what they wanted, their bodies told them an unfortunate truth. It wasn't what they really desired. Or they'd given up too much of their presence to actually get or enjoy it. So perhaps it's a cautionary tale. Be careful with the desire to get ahead. Instead, pursue what lights your world up consistently at the highest level that you can. And you'll end up being in what most people think of as the top 1% just by default. The truth is simple. You don't get ahead by doing what everyone else is doing. You get ahead by being the exception, by trusting yourself, by showing up where it matters, by leveraging compounding focus, by chasing goals that actually light you up, and by creating work that resonates deeply, not just loudly. These aren't just hacks, they're patterns I've watched separate the people who build extraordinary lives from everyone else who stays stuck. Pick one of these rules, try it this week, and see how different your results are. And then let me know in the comments how well this works out for you. I hope this helps.